3 reasons why getting rid of using an eraser when we draw can be a drawing game changer. 3 reasons why getting rid of our eraser may actually have ripple-on effects for our life in general, but certainly bring a great deal more enjoyment to our drawing process. The third one I have actually talked about in a previous video. These first two, to my knowledge, I've never mentioned at all. So let's start. And the first one is that one of the main reasons even the thought of drawing without using an eraser can feel so overwhelming, such an impossibility, in the end, I think, comes down to fear. Fear of making mistakes. And exactly why we're afraid of making a mistake can have a very different cause for each of us. But whatever that cause is, whatever the deeper thing we're not wanting to have happen, that will happen if we make mistakes, whether it's what we'll think or what other people think or whatever. Having reached the grand old age that I have reached, I can say very confidently that fear is never a good reason to make decisions. Fear is never a good reason to say, I will do it this way because then I am not so fearful. Because fear is one of those things that can't sit still. It will either be increasing in prominence in our life, or it will be becoming less and less because we're learning that the thing that we were fearful about is not really to be feared, at least as much or at all. And our drawing can be a context where this dynamic is working. And if we're in a dynamic where we're becoming more and more afraid of making mistakes for some reason, then I would almost guarantee that our drawing experience is becoming less and less satisfying and more nerve-wracking. And we can reach the point where we're afraid to start, even if we are using an eraser. And what often happens is we start to use it more and more. We become less and less able to leave lines that aren't quite perfect in our drawing, and we feel that we have to remove them because we can. And in the end, our focus becomes checking to see if things are wrong rather than learning to draw them correctly in the first place. And that brings us to the second reason that I haven't talked about before, and that is having an eraser to use can actually act as something that takes the edge off our need to get it right the first time. And unfortunately, what it can mean is that we don't actually develop the sharpness, the precision in our observation habits. It can mean that we don't push ourselves to get it right the first time because we're always thinking, oh, well, I'll just erase it if it's not right. And what we're doing is we're undercutting our own learning experience. And if I'm doing a drawing, if I'm putting the time into doing any drawing at all, I need to get maximum usefulness for my drawing journey, learning experience from that time, whether it's 10 minutes or whether it's 2 hours. I don't want to spend time where I'm actually developing and reinforcing habits of imprecision in what I draw, habits of not feeling I need to really get it right when I look the first time and I work out what I'm going to do and where I'm going to put it the first time, because I'm thinking I can always move the line if it's not in the right place. And because I'm not necessarily getting it right the first go, that means I'm introducing constant erasing into my, if you like, normal workflow, my normal drawing flow. But erasing and having to redraw what I've just erased is actually a backward step. Backwards in the sense of I've now got less drawing on my paper for the time I've spent drawing than I had. And it means that my drawing experience can be 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, which means I'm not learning to develop the creative thinking, the flow of creative thinking, because I'm constantly having to go back a step or 2 steps or even 3 steps because I see something I missed earlier and think, oh look, I better erase that and the things that I've drawn around that since, and so forth. There's a constant moving backwards and having to reinvent something we've already done. Whereas if I learn to get it right the first time, I develop this wonderful and, can I say, satisfying flow in my drawing, because I'm constantly moving in the one direction. And even if I have ink lines that aren't quite right, part of my moving in the one direction is to now work with those lines that aren't in the right place and either hide them or lessen the impact they have. And I don't just develop the skills, the creative thinking to learn how to do that, but I keep my movement all in the one positive direction. I'm never wrenching the gearbox into reverse, trying to have a moment again. I learn to have the moment as best I can in the moment and to keep moving forwards. And the third point really only matters if you think you have an issue with perfectionism in your drawing. If there's this need for things to be right, where you actually can't cope with thinking that it's not right. And unfortunately, again, this is a very bad attitude to have to develop in our drawing. And probably because it's connected with fear, it actually grows over time. We either address it, or if we give into it a bit, we learn that we need to give into it a little bit more the next time. It's never satisfied with how well we draw. It allows less and less things that aren't perfect to remain in our drawing. And if I have an eraser and I'm drawing in pencil or in pencil at that stage, then I can endlessly keep turning the clock back and giving in and feeding the perfectionistic tendencies that I've got. Can I say a healthier approach to take is to actually see our drawing as a wonderful context to tackle perfectionism head on. Because if we have it in our drawing, we won't only have it in our drawing. I mean, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not giving any professional advice, but in my experience, this is how it worked. And one of the big problems with perfectionism is that it runs really very much against good learning process. See, perfectionism, the need to have something look absolutely perfect at the end, does not free me to learn. It closes me in on a very narrow path, on the path that will deliver whatever is acceptable for my mental state at the end. But when I'm learning to draw, I need to learn, and we learn by experimenting, we learn by taking risks. How many people learning the piano, learning a new piece, pushing themselves to perhaps a more complex piece, can get every note right the first time they play it? If they could, they wouldn't need to learn it. It's the same with drawing. When we're pushing ourselves into new skills or new levels of complexity, we're not going to get it right. That's why we're learning. We look at what we do, we critique it, we work out what we need to change, and we change it, and we push ahead. We experiment, we take risks, we do new things, or we do old things but in different ways or using different materials. Perfectionism will choke our ability to do that, because in the end we won't be able to cope with the fact that our drawing at the end may look wrong. Instead of appreciating that in a healthy learning experience, things look right, things look wrong as part of the journey to getting them looking right. And when I get rid of the eraser, I'm saying I'm learning to draw. I'm going to learn as part of that to accept things not looking right, possibly even just for part of the drawing process for that particular drawing, or maybe at the end it still won't look right. But I've now got more information to focus on in the next drawing, and I will continue to learn. And the fact that I can't erase anything, that I can't go backwards, that I have to learn to accept any imperfections in my drawing is a really healthy and helpful thing for my overall drawing development. G'day, I'm Stephen Travis. Look, I hope this has been helpful. There's nothing wrong with drawing with an eraser. There's nothing wrong with drawing in pencil. Can I say, just because we draw in pencil though, doesn't mean we have to use an eraser. But it is a constant temptation. And there is nothing wrong with erasing things that aren't quite right or that are spoiling our drawing. The only problem is if we develop an unhealthy dependence on it, and we know we're becoming more and more tight and narrowed in what we'll accept and what we do. And we want to break out of that and reset our attitude towards drawing and our learning experience. There is probably nothing I have done in my drawing journey in the last 5 years that has revolutionized my drawing and brought me so much drawing joy as getting rid of my eraser and learning to shift the thought processes that were developing as I drew to far more happier and productive ones. Well, I hope this was helpful for anyone for whom it is helpful. But whatever you draw, however you draw it, with or without an eraser, make sure you have fun. But let me tell you, I have a lot more fun now drawing without an eraser. But I'll see you next time. Bye.